Let me hear you say ho if you make it straight flow. If you got love for them players, let me hear you say ooh, ladies, we want you. If you got love for them straight G's and you wanna be them, get straight.
Good morning from Olympia, Washington. It's Wednesday, July 10th, 2019. My name is Bobby Johnson, and I'm a developer evangelist for Auth0. Thanks for coming to check out my stream, and thank you, Mike Jolly, for that sub. It's still my only sub. I love you, man. So it's been a little while since I've done a stream. I've got a lot of catching up to do with you guys. I need to stretch a little bit and remember how to do this streaming thing. All my OBS settings and things still seem to be working fine for me. Anybody in the chat want to give me a shout out and let me know how my voice is doing? It sounds like my mic's a little hot according to OBS. I'll back that off a little bit. How does that sound? Does that sound okay to you guys? Yeah, so while I'm waiting for a few more people to pop in and to get started, I wanted to share something that I saw today that was pretty funny. And so since this is my first day back streaming for a while, we'll start out with something funny. Otto, my coworker at Auth0, shared this with me. And I found it absolutely hilarious. So let's check out this video.
Double TPS, colon inside slash, subliminal spectrum.com/app-rapping. Goes the stream down with an acting slash. Here comes the magic. Set the function up to grab it. Put it up so you can have it. Function, we got that fire to structure data from parameter. Require FS right file. Suspect is gonna damage it. .zip R to his data. But of course, we got the callback param. Handle the parent, though error comment, no fallback. Get the joint is lit. R2, it is an object with the property response type values array buffer.then. We got that fire, do slash, and now we're done. Here's a sampling of my music. Open sip and have some fun.
So I love that. I found that really hilarious. Reminds me of Mike Jolly's Prince of Bel-Air song that he does. It's really hilarious. So anyway, some things that have been going on with me. About a year ago, I got nervous about, not nervous, but I finally decided to execute on some harsh feelings or untrustfulness with Facebook that I had. And I decoupled myself from Facebook and got rid of my account that I'd had for close to 10 years. I basically deleted my account, deleted the app off the phone. And most of that was I was spending way too much time on there, and the signal to noise ratio on Facebook was getting really bad. Like I really wasn't interacting with anybody the way that I wanted to in the past. And then there was the whole Cambridge Analytica thing was kind of pushed me over the edge. It's just like, Facebook has had these data integrity or data protection issues that keep popping up for years and years and years. I'm just going to do away with it. It's not really adding anything to my life anymore. And I've been off of Facebook for about a year now. And the reason I bring that up is I had another episode like that recently, and that episode was Google basically saying that they were going to disable certain ad blocking software in their browser. And that was kind of a tipping point with me for Google for similar reasons, the invasive privacy invasion, that sort of thing has been bugging me for a while. And I'm really bought into the Google ecosystem. So at the same time that story came out, there was another story that came out about Firefox and about how they were taking the exact opposite route. And I decided that I'd start doing a trial where I started using the new Firefox, the one that does the no tracking and has a lot of privacy features baked into it, and see if I could be as comfortable with Firefox as I am with Chrome. And one of the concerns that I had with that, if I pop over here to the screen to where you can see that, is there are several extensions in Chrome that I use, and one of them is 1Password, which I must use a password manager. I work for a security company. It'd be weird if I didn't. Another one is the React tools and the Vue tools. As well as uBlock Origin, which was, kind of the thing that was going to get disabled in Chrome. I didn't want to lose that. So the first thing I did when I installed Firefox was I made sure those extensions were available to me, and I was really surprised to see that they are. So I decided to take one aspect of my browsing and apply it to Firefox and see how it goes. And with the ultimate goal of possibly eventually just removing Chrome from my system completely. And so far, I'm pretty happy with it. When I say one aspect of my browsing, I have this interesting setup in Chrome where I have multiple profiles. I have a profile for like my personal accounts, so my personal Gmail account and any like my Reddit, Twitter, that sort of thing. And I usually have a browser window open that's in that profile. But then I also have an Auth0 profile that I use to get into my Auth0 email address, some of our internal tools, all of our documentation, things like that. Anything for work related goes in that profile. So what I did when I installed Firefox was I migrated my personal profile all over into Firefox, and I've been using it for about a week now, and you'll be seeing me use it in this stream. So I'm pretty happy with it so far. I'm enjoying it. So let's see. I wanted to talk about that. I've got a whole list of things to talk with you guys about, and one of the things that I wanted to talk about is that I have been running this stream kind of haphazardly for the last few months, for about 6 months actually. And I pop in and do a stream when I feel like it, but I really want to kind of lock in and start getting on a schedule and start doing more Auth0 based content. And one of the things that's come up in my streaming community lately is that, people like to pop into streams and maybe troll, do various things. And something that we've been talking about is that having a good set of mods that can join you to control chat and make sure, nothing nefarious is going on. Is a good idea. And currently I don't have any mods. I have to mod everything myself, right? So if you are watching and you've done modding before, or you're interested in helping me out by modding for my channel, send me a message, and I'd be happy to add you as a mod, so that you can prevent people from spamming my channel and disrupting the stream. So that's just kind of a request out there. I know I need some mods. If you're interested, come talk to me and we'll deal with that. So there's been a whole lot of things going on recently with Auth0. And I kind of wanted to go through some of those things with you, just to kind of give you an update of like, hey, what's new and fresh at Auth0 that you might be interested in doing. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about is we've started releasing a bunch of video content on our website. If you go to auth0.com/docs/videos, we have 2 series out there so far. And the first one is called Learn Identity, which stars our principal architect, Vittorio. And if you don't know who Vittorio is, he blogs at cloudidentity.com, and he is a long time, or formerly a very long time employee at Microsoft who worked on a lot of their identity platform, including lots of work in Active Directory and with the identity frameworks in .NET. So he's a very experienced identity professional, and these Learn Identity training courses are actually the training courses new employees at Auth0 goes through. Usually you go to the Bellevue office in Bellevue, Washington, sit down in a big conference room and get a lecture from Vittorio, like one of the coolest guys or one of the most well-respected people in the identity community. You'd be getting trained by him directly. And a lot of the knowledge that I have around identity in the identity space comes from being trained by Vittorio directly. So what this Learn Identity series of videos covers is basically that onboarding training that Vittorio did for us. They recorded it and just released it to the public, right? Very cool stuff. So if you're interested in learning about not necessarily Auth0 and how to use Auth0, but identity concepts and kind of how we got to where we're at, and like what is the open standard OpenID Connect? What is that? What does it mean? How did it come about? What problems was it intending to solve? Vittorio covers that really, really well, and he's a very entertaining speaker. So the videos are kind of long, like the first one is like 48 minutes long. So there's just a ton of content in there. I encourage you to go and check that out. Another thing that we released is a series of getting started videos for Auth0. So these stories are these videos are actually intended to be a first touch point for our new customers that come on. It's very enterprise focused. So new customers, they sign up with Auth0 to be their identity solution. They need to start implementing things, so they have to understand some core concepts around identity. And one of the interesting things about this is I did these videos. So the reason I haven't been on my stream as much in the last 3 months or so is I was asked by our documents team to form a team for a quarter, and we would basically outline, script, record, review, and publish a series of videos on using Auth0. So I've been working on that, and I found it really, really tough to focus on this project, but then also come up with good topics and streams. And you guys may have remembered early in the last quarter, I tried to do both, and it was really awkward for me. So I chose to put a pause on my streaming, just like I put a pause on my public speaking engagements. And so we released these on Tuesday, early in the morning. And if you're not familiar with Auth0, or you've heard of it and you're thinking about using it, I encourage you to go check out some of these videos. They're linear. They go one right after another, and they hit all the core concepts about Auth0. And just to give you an idea of what they're like, I want to go ahead and pop one open here, and I'm going to play it for just a minute or two. All right. So let's go back to screen. And of course, the entire time I was talking, I did not have my browser up. I'm like pointing at it and talking to myself. But anyway, here's the Learn Identity series with Vittorio. And here is the Vittorio's website. In case you're interested, he's a prolific author. This claims-based identity and access control book is actually the foundation of Auth0. If you look at the title or the authors that were involved with that, two of them are founders of Auth0, and one of them is Vittorio, who joined us last year sometime. So anyway, that's what that one is. Learn Identity, Vittorio's website, and here is the Getting Started video series that I was talking about. These ones are much shorter than Vittorio's. We tried to be on point and just give you the details that you need to know. So let's take a look at the first video. This one is about architecture in terms of how to set up your tenant within Auth0. So let's listen to a couple minutes of that. In this video, we will talk about what an Auth0 tenant is and show you how to configure it in the Auth0 dashboard.
We will also briefly explain why you may want to use more than one tenant if you have different user communities, and also how you can use more than one tenant in support of your software development lifecycle.
Can you guys hear that okay? Is the volume all right? Yeah. Cool, let me know. I will crank it up a little bit.
We will also describe the importance of tenant naming, use of custom domains, provisioning additional tenant admins, and how to associate tenants with your Auth0 account. Once you create your account in Auth0, you will be asked to create a tenant. This is a logical isolation unit. The term tenant is borrowed from the phrase software multi-tenancy and refers to an architecture where a single instance of the software serves multiple tenants. No tenant can access the instance of another tenant, even though the software might be...
So that's good. We don't have to watch the entire video. You get the idea. Thanks, Codeman Codes. I'm not going to show any more of the video anyway. But if you guys are interested in learning about specific aspects about Auth0 and what we do, we cover the main key areas of our service offering. So setting up a tenant, user stores, connecting to user stores, the either bulk or automated import of users. We talk about authentication at a high level, about how authentication works. Then we go into authentication with a single page application example and show you how that works. That was a pretty fun video. We talk a little bit about authorization with ID tokens and access control. Also with getting and validating ID tokens. We talk about storing user profiles inside of Auth0. We also talk about branding, how branding works with Auth0, as well as like actual advice on how to brand your sign-up pages, your login pages, emails that go out to your customers, and error pages. And then finally, when you're using an identity as a service provider, login has an interesting aspect to it. And you really need to pay attention to what you're doing when you're implementing logout when using an identity provider. So the last video goes into some of the details about implementing logout. So one of the other things that we released recently are identicons. And this you can find at identicons.dev. And what these are icons created by our design team here at Auth0 for use in diagramming or slides or when you're presenting for various identity related concepts. And these are open source, free to use for anybody that wants to use them. They're SVG source, so they're scalable, the colors are changeable, and it's all based on a GitHub repository. So you can actually submit back to the repository new identicons to be used. And I don't know if you noticed, but in the video that I showed that I created, I heavily use these identicons. And in my presentations that I do when I go out and give presentations, usually if I've got to do a diagram or explain a concept or anything like that, I use these. So I like them a lot, and you will probably be seeing them a lot more in the near future because I have a lot of ideas of things to do with it. One thing to point out is we have a light version of the icons, but we also have a dark version of the icons. And anybody is welcome to use those. So if you're looking to up your game with your identity or server related diagrams, feel free to download these and use them. They're absolutely free. One of the other cool things that we released recently was a new way to visualize customizations within Auth0. And you can find this information at flows.auth0.com. And what this is a way to visualize the various flows through our UI in a nice fashion. Let's just walk through this. So like, welcome to Auth0 Flows. This interactive demo showcases the powerful features Auth0 provides to secure your applications from the end user perspective. You can visualize the user journey. Wow, that's heavy. So let's take a look at it and see what it does, right? So what you can do is I can put in a company name. So, for example, I want to do Twitch. Do we have Twitch? Yeah, there's Twitch right there. So I can put in that company's name, and I can say, okay, explore the flows. And what you get is this work area, I guess, which shows you what the various dialogues within Auth0 would look like with the Twitch color scheme and logo applied to it. So the first one that we're looking at is the login dialog, right? So you get a username and password. That's it. And if you were to, there is no continue. So let's look at sign up. So the sign up flow, when a user chooses to sign up, they have to put in some information. And then when they click continue, they come over to this next place where they have to put in their password, right? And it shows you a dialogue with the Twitch color schemes and that sort of thing, showing you what the password confirmation dialogue looks like, right? So what about if a user forgets their password? What's the website going to look like for that? And it kind of walks you through each of the flows going through interacting with our identity as a service provider, right? So what about third-party logins? Gives you an idea what that flow looks like. So when you go to log in, the available options you have to you are Facebook, Google, and GitHub. That might be what you have configured. And if I selected GitHub or Google, this is what the dialogue is going to look like, right? It's going to push me out to GitHub's actual authentication server. So that's pretty cool. We also have a third-party auth through enterprise single sign-on. So things like Google for Business. You might have a SAML provider that you use for logging in, and it kind of shows you that. And the cool thing is the color scheme thing, right? Like I can go back and I can customize this and say, you know what? I don't want to be Twitch anymore. I'm going to be Microsoft. Like that. Apply it. And now you see the logo changed. If we go back to the login, you see the color scheme has changed and we're now using the Microsoft logo. So we have username and password auth-based flows. We have third-party auth-based flows. We also talk about multi-factor authentication. So things like sending a one-time code to your phone and you have to plug it in. This is kind of what the flow would look like through that. What does it look like to enroll your device in multi-factor authentication? It shows you kind of all of the flows through that. And if I go in, I could actually do individual screens, right? So it's like, okay, here's the login and I'm doing multi-factor enrollment. Okay, well, here's how you get the app. This is the next screen you would see. Here's how you would use the app. You'd scan this QR code and it would configure the app for you. And then when you're logging in, it would actually prompt you on the app itself and wait for you to confirm, that sort of thing. So that's pretty slick. I really dig that. This must be new. We didn't have the device flow in here a while ago, but this is device login. And if you're wondering what device login is, if you have a fancy TV that has Netflix built right into it, you might have remembered when you set that up, it just displayed like a URL for you to go to, right? And you went on your computer, you plugged in that URL and you logged in and it gave you a code to come back and plug in. And that's what this device flow is for. It's for user interface restricted devices. So things like Raspberry Pis or televisions, that sort of thing. And the last one, I haven't seen this one yet either, is what the consent screen looks like. And if you're not familiar with consent with OAuth, you usually request scopes related to what you can access about that person. And consent is that little pop-up you get that says, hey, this application is asking for your email address to have access to these resources. Do you allow that? And you can choose to accept or deny. This is what the consent screen looks like. So this flows thing is really cool. And I see it expanding a lot. And one of the things that I've heard the team that's working on this talk about is they want to integrate this into the portions of branding down here. Like, remember how I was talking about we have these branding videos? where when you're working on branding, you actually can go through these flows and tweak things. So I think that's the ultimate goal for this particular project, but it's pretty neat. The final thing that I wanted to talk about, which was a big announcement that we did a couple weeks ago, was we have released a new JavaScript SDK specifically for single page applications. A lot of JavaScript developers and just web developers for a long time that use Auth0 have been using an older library called Auth0.js. And the SPA SDK is intended to be a complete replacement for Auth0.js. And it is structured in such a way to be easily used in SPAs, like SPAs built in things like Angular, React, and Vue. This particular library is a low-level library in the same way that maybe Axios would be a low-level library for you. We do intend in the long run to have wrapper libraries around the SPA SDK that are specific for platforms. So there might be a wrapper library for Angular that implements things in an idiomatic way for Angular. Same with React and Vue. So keep an eye on that. If you're interested in reading more about this SPA SDK, Sam does a really great job of introducing it. I go check out his blog post article because he goes into great detail about it. It's really good stuff. So that's kind of what I've got for Auth0. Seems like we've got a little bit of an audience going on now. So why don't we pause here? Go back to the camera, close them tabs, and let's see, you guys are talking to each other, talking at me. I need to get back in my flow there. Let's see. Ancient Coder, good to see you here. Mike Jolly, good to see you. I gave you the shout out again at the beginning of the stream. Robert Tables, thank you for joining us. I haven't seen you in a while on my stream, probably because I haven't been doing it. Yeah. All right. Codeman Codes, thanks for being here. A stalking bot. I'm not sure if that is going to be a bot or if that's just someone who's stalking me as a bot. I'm kind of confused by that. Cash Bear, thanks for joining. CMJ Chris Jones, thanks for being here. Let's see. Lurks. That's a great name. I like that name. Hey, Lurks, thanks for being here. Rambling Geek, good to see you. Thanks for being on my stream. Safraka. Is that right? Did I pronounce that right? I'm going to go with Safraka. There's no R in that, though. Is it Sifaka? I'm going to mispronounce that very badly for a while. And Ted. Hi, Ted. How's it going? Cool. So the next thing that I want to talk about is that I have loads of events that I need to talk with you guys about. And as a part of my job at Auth0, I do give a lot of talks. I go to a lot of conferences and that sort of thing. And while I was working on this video project that I was talking about, one of the things that I maintained was I kept submitting to conferences. And I also wanted to do a new talk. I've gotten really, really into Vue.js in the last few months. So I created a CFP, and that CFP was for securing Vue.js with OpenID Connect and OAuth, and I started submitting it to conferences. And oh my God, is Vue popular? Look at all these talks that I have coming up. They are all, everywhere I submit this talk, it's being accepted. So in August, I'm going to be in Minneapolis at Midwest JS. And I probably shouldn't open that. I already had the tab open. And I will be giving this talk. So if you're in that area, please stop by and say hi to me. I would love to chat with you, or maybe we can go grab a beer or coffee if that's your thing. And just meet you out in the real world. So Midwest JS in August. Then I'll be doing a couple meetups. The Seattle Vue.js meetup. I am actually hosting this at the Auth0 office. Tessa Miro reached out to me and asked if I wanted to give a talk to the group. And we got to talking, and the Auth0 office opened up a new floor that has like a meeting space. So I offered to actually host it as well. So Seattle Vue.js, that's going to be coming up. What is it? August 12th. So if you guys happen to be in the Pacific Northwest, come hang out with me there. I am also going to be speaking at the API meetup in Seattle as well. Also run by Tessa Miro. We kind of did this thing together. And we're also going to be back at the Auth0 offices. So this one's going to be different. I'm going to be doing my Password 101 talk for these folks. So if you haven't seen that talk yet and you're in the area, feel free to stop in and hang out with me. So those are the two meetups that I'm going to in the near future. But one of the big happy surprises for me was that my talk got accepted at Music City Code. So either September 6th or 7th, I'm going to be in Nashville delivering my Vue talk. And I'm really excited about this. I've been wanting to do Music City Code for quite a while. They don't have their schedule up yet, so I don't know exactly what day I'm going to be in. But if you happen to be based in and around Nashville, come hang out with me. Then this one really surprised me. So I got accepted to speak at Armada.js, which is in Novi Sad, Serbia. We have a tool inside my team that we basically list all of the conferences that we've signed up to. And I was going through and I was just like, okay, Sam signed up for this one. I'm going to throw one in there. And I kind of went through and started doing a bunch of different submissions. And I submitted to this Armada.js, not realizing it was outside the United States. But I got accepted. So I talked with my manager and I'm going. So I'm going to be in Serbia in early September, delivering my Securing Vue with OpenID Connect and OAuth. And that, I think, technically makes me an international speaker. What? Okay. So that's pretty cool. If any of you happen to be near Novi Sad, Serbia, please come join me. That'd be cool. Let's see. The last one that I have to talk with you about is Tech Bash. I got accepted to Tech Bash as well, which is in Pennsylvania, and our friend C# Fritz is going to be there. So that should be a really good time. If you guys happen to be in the area, we should probably try to get a meetup together or something like that, with as many of the stream audience and the stream team that we can get. Yeah, I don't know anything about cold on the East Coast, so yeah, I'm gonna have to buy like a big old coat. Thanks for the advice. Let's see. So there was one more thing that I wanted to talk about with relations to events, and that is the Auth0 online meetup. The Auth0 online meetup I actually run. I go out and I find a speaker and book them, and then we do the meetup via GoToMeeting right now. And this month we have a really, really good speaker. He's going to be talking about securing spas with the new Auth0 SDK. So the SDK thing that I was talking about earlier, we're actually going to have Ruben Restrepo, one of the software engineers here at Auth0, come on and show how it's used, right? So I would really, really, if you're interested in learning about securing spas, specifically with our SDK, I would encourage you to come and participate in the meetup. But not only that, go ahead and go to the meetup group and join us. And that way you'll get notifications whenever I post a meetup. They're typically near the end of the month and happen at about noon to 1 Pacific Standard Time. And we do them every month. And sometimes I present, but I really do like to get people from the community to come in and talk about things. If you're curious about the kind of things that you can see in the online meetup, let's go look at some of the past events that we've had. So the last one we had was simplifying OAuth in API Gateway with Pulumi and Auth0. That was a really good meetup. I like that one a lot. We had some talks about building for resiliency, tips for incident management. We had Stephanie Chambly come on and talk about Java Web Tokens. JavaScript web tokens. We've had someone come on and speak about advanced single page application authentication. We've had some GraphQL talks. So it's a wide range of topics. Sometimes it's a little project manager-y focused. Sometimes it's deep technical talks. So I encourage you to join us because it's absolutely free. And it doesn't cost you anything to come and check it out. And that's what free means. So thanks. I don't know why I'm looking down here at chat because like this is the embodiment of where you guys are. But anyway, so one interesting thing about the Auth0 online meetup is that you have to go to meetup.com to see that we have one posted. But then you also have to go down here to this go to webinar link to register to get into the screencast. And I've been talking with my manager about moving all of this over to Twitch. So sometime in the near future, there's a very good chance we'll be doing all of our Auth0 online meetups on Twitch itself. We're currently in the process of getting access to the Auth0 channel on Twitch. Sadly, we have a squatter on it right now, so we're having to like go through some hoops to get a hold of that channel. But that's where you'll be finding the Auth0 online meetup in a while. And then my compatriots at Auth0, my other developer evangelists, I'm working on some documentation for them to where they can start streaming as well to the Auth0 channel. Giving us some coverage around the world. You'll have Ben down in Australia doing streams during his work day, me in the States doing streams during my work day, Sam in Europe doing streams during his work day. So I have really big plans about the Auth0 Twitch channel. So one other thing that I wanted to bring up, and I've been talking about this in the team channel Discord a bit, but there seems to be a lot of people who have some interest in getting involved in speaking at conferences or just DevRel in general. And one of the most common things you hear people say is, I can't afford to be going to conferences in Nashville and Orlando and all these places. So I really don't have an opportunity to kind of fine tune my skills, that sort of thing, and learn how to give presentations. And I always point people to this website, which is our Auth0 Ambassador program. And what's cool about the Auth0 Ambassador program is once you're accepted in, we will, if you get accepted to a conference, we will pay for your airfare and we'll pay for your hotel for you to arrive. And I actually met two of our Auth0 ambassadors at Orlando Code Camp and got to hang out with them and that sort of thing. And they got to go to Orlando completely free. So that was pretty cool. And they also get to put line items on their resume, that they have given presentations at large conferences, that sort of thing. So it's a really cool program. We have a public facing version of it and we have a private or internal facing version of it. That's why you see Sam here. He's one of our internal ambassadors who takes advantage of the program to be able to go to things like AngularConf and that sort of thing. Really, really cool. And you can see we have a large list of ambassadors all over the world. So it's not just restricted to the United States. So if you've ever thought to yourself, boy, I wish I could give talks, but didn't feel you had the resources to do it, and you feel you have a good voice and a good story to tell, definitely look into getting into the ambassador program. It's a good way to build that resume so that when you do apply for a DevRel job, you have something to show. Because some places think streaming isn't like totally all that DevRels do. So maybe you need to do some other things. So back to the camera. That's it for that topic. Close those tabs. How are we doing in there? Let's see. Little Bobby Tables is talking to me. Chicago Summit booth. Yeah, sorry. I wasn't doing any events the last 2.5 months or so. I was just focused on this video project. But I have a ton of upcoming events that I have submitted to. In fact, let me bring that up real quick. I'll just show it to you. Where is my browser? Gaggle, is that it? Yeah, that's it. So let me bring up our internal tracker. And this is an app that we use to log basically what conferences we've submit to, what talks we're currently submitting, and whether or not we got accepted or not, that sort of thing. So I'll show you all, like I have the list that I showed you earlier that of talks that I've been accepted to. But I also have this whole list of items that I've submitted to that are coming up, like Chicago JS Camp. I'm probably not going to go to that because it's happens on July 4th and they haven't accepted me or not. But I also submitted to Atlanta Code Camp, Seattle Code Camp, Mr. Fritz's .NET Conf. I've submitted to that. Vermont Code Camp. I really want to go to that one to meet Julie Lerman. So I'm hoping I get accepted to that one. Let's see. I submitted to Little Rock Tech Fest again because my brother lives down there, and that is a really awesome conference. I had a blast the last time I went to Little Rock Tech Fest, so I hope I get submitted to, or accepted to that one again. I submitted to ViewConf Toronto and DevNexus in February. So there may be a whole lot more opportunities in the next few months to for us to get together and meet in person. But yeah, that's all I wanted to show on that front. Yeah, Julie Lerman's pretty awesome. I met her in person, gosh, how long ago was it? It's got to be at least 6-7 years ago. She came to the Olympia developers user group to do a presentation, and she was really cool. At this time, she was very early stages EF and was learning all about DDD and things like the repository pattern and that sort of thing. So she really like went whole hog on that kind of aspect of development and has been doing it quite a bit. So I'm pretty excited to go hang out with her if it's at all possible. So anyway, another thing about the ambassadors program, if you're not interested in traveling or going to conferences, is that there's another aspect to that that's about our guest writer program. And we have a blog that's very popular. Let me see if I can bring it up for you real quick. Auth0 blog. Yeah, so this is our blog, auth0.com/blog. We have tons of content in here. People really praise us for the quality of the content that we have. We have an entire team that's dedicated to creating content. Bruno Krebs, my favorite writer on our blog. I know every time I read a Bruno article, I'm going to learn something from Bruno. But we also have guest writers that come in and will do a post for us. And the ambassadors program is an on-ramp for you to get into doing those kinds of writing for us. So that's another thing to look forward to in there. So that's it for the guest writer program. There was something else that I wanted to start doing for the people around me, and that is to talk about the Live Coders team. And the Live Coders team is a whole community of streamers like myself that do similar things to me. They come on and they talk to you for, periods of time. They write code, they chit chat, that sort of thing. And the Live Coders is a place to discover those people. So if you pop open a new browser window and you go to livecoders.dev, it's going to take you to that page that I just showed you. And you can see who is currently streaming. Looks like lucky number 7 is currently streaming and kicking my butt with 60 people watching him. You go. Tim Badeau is streaming, and myself with 9 people watching. But there are a ton of people in here of various engagement, I guess, going from like really polished, professional looking streams to people that are just, having fun and experimenting, which is really, 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 really cool. If you're interested in joining the Live Coders team, you can go to this GitHub repository, which is github.com/livecoders, and the home repository. And what you can do is you can go into the issues, add a new issue as an application to apply to become a part of the Live Coders team. And then your name will show up on this list. There are some prerequisites that you need to meet before you get accepted into the group. But you don't have to be C# Fritz. I mean, if you stream on a regular basis and you're at least a partner status or affiliate status, you probably have a pretty good chance of being able to join us. So I encourage you to get in there. It's a great way to meet other streamers, find other opportunities to maybe be on a pair stream with another streamer, and to get your name out there. So I encourage you to go and join us. And related to that, I wanted to start a portion of my stream where I call out members of my community that I engage with a lot and that I find really useful and provide a lot of value to me. So I wanted to start that off with talking about the top 3 streams that I really, really enjoy. And the first one, obviously, is going to be C# Fritz. C# Fritz is a DevRel person for Microsoft. He is probably the most polished and professional streamer that I watch. And you really need to check out his channel. He streams at least 3 times a week. He is actually the organizer of our Live Coders team. And he's just a lot of fun to watch. If you want to see a stream done really well, hop into C# Fritz's channel, go to videos, and watch one of his recent broadcasts. He's really, really good. Yeah. So another streamer that I watch quite frequently is Clarkio. And I do believe Clarkio is a DevRel type person for Microsoft as well. But his approach and the way he goes about doing his streams is a little more relaxed. He's a little more friendly, a little more playful. He's what you would think a 20-year-old streamer would be like, a little silly, a little fun. He does a lot of interesting things that you might not necessarily see on C# Fritz's stream. So definitely, if you're interested in checking out Clarkio and learning more about him, go to his channel and then check out one of his recent broadcasts. They're really good. And then finally, I want to give a shout out to Michael Jolly. His channel is The Michael Jolly. And the difference with Michael Jolly from the previous 2 that I've talked about is Mike, from my standpoint, is kind of a hobbyist at this so far. He started doing this kind of just out of the pure joy of wanting to share with people the things that he's working on. And what's interesting about that, he has one of the most polished streams for a non-DevRel person that I've seen. Like his backgrounds, his animation, everything's really, really beautiful. So I encourage you to check out Michael Jolly. And one of the fun things with Michael Jolly to do is to watch one of his, let's see, where's it at? Heroines of JavaScript interviews. So every other Sunday, Mike Jolly invites one of the heroines onto his stream to do a pair stream together. And his daughters actually interview one of the heroines of JavaScript. And it's even if you don't get anything technical out of it, just seeing his 2 little girls interviewing a professional woman in IT and tech, and being encouraged to follow them in a STEM career is heartwarming. And so I love watching these streams on Sunday. So that is the end of that about the community. The next time I stream, I will pick 3 other streamers and talk about what I like about their streams. So that's all I got to say about that. So if you give me just a minute, I'm going to take a quick break, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk to you about something called Bivrost, and we're going to take a look at it. So give me just a few minutes, and I'll be right back. All right, I am back. I had to stop and get my screens all set up to where I could present this next thing and have a bio break and grab myself some more tea. Even though you guys haven't really seen me been drinking tea. Tea, it's what's in the South. Okay, so anyway, let's take a look at Bivrost and let's talk about what that's all about. So I started out my stream pretty heavily invested in screen elements, I believe. And just like every other streamer that I watch, they start out with stream elements. But at a certain point, you start bumping into the edges of stream elements and what you want to do with your stream. And every streamer I know who does that begins on this journey of writing their own version of stream elements, and Bivrost is mine. It's kind of like going through the Jedi Academy and having to build your own lightsaber. I think I got that from Michael Jolly, actually. So Bivrost is a Norse. The name comes from Norse mythology. And it was top of mind for me because of all the Thor movies that have come out recently. And if you're not aware, Bivrost is the rainbow bridge that bridges Asgard to Midgard. So if you've seen the Thor movies and you see the big guy with the sword who plunges it like into the ground and this wild, like sparky rainbow thing flies out of it and people use it to travel to Earth, that thing, the rainbow thing, is Bivrost. So it bridges two things. And what that bridges is, for me, is my UI, my overlays, that sort of thing, and Twitch. So Bivrost is built on ASP.NET Core, and it offers several overlay endpoints, and it hosts a Twitch bot directly inside of it. And we'll get to looking at that, but if you guys are interested in looking at the source code for Bivrost, you can go to github.com/notmyself/Bivrost, right? And the source is up there, and you guys are going to be seeing a whole lot of stuff from me coming on Bivrost because I don't have it complete yet, and I want to get it complete. But my documentation is good. You can read through it pretty well. It does run locally. You need some information that you need to store using the .NET Secrets tool. But you can also run it as a Docker container itself, where you can pass those environment variables into it. So you don't necessarily have to have .NET on your local machine. But my ultimate goal is to be able to take Bivrost, generate a Docker image, and hand it off to the members of my team, right? So that Sam, when he decides to go stream, he can get these bits of information for himself, you know, his username, access token, and channel, spin up the Docker image, and have all the tooling he needs to be able to run his own stream and have it look exactly like mine, right? So that's kind of the goal for Docker. I am also automatically deploying it out to Zeit, which currently is my favorite cloud deployment provider, simply because of ease of use. If you've ever used Heroku or App Factory or any of those kinds of services that are kind of a layer above the platform as a service providers, Zeit's a really good one, or Zeit is a really good one that I really like. Because at least with their version 1 platform, you can just hand them a Docker container and they just stand it up, and it works really, really well. So Bivrost is being hosted on that. If I go to bivrost.notmyself.io, it will eventually fire up, and you can see the website, but I don't want to show it to you yet because we're going to go into that in detail here pretty soon. I give you some information about how to obtain Twitch access tokens, what they're used for, and then show you a couple screenshots of what it looks like, at least what it looked like a month or so ago. So let's talk about the architecture of the application. I'll go ahead and move this for a second and bring up Visual Studio Code. Which this is a kind of a funny thing too, is Mike Jolly has a command in his stream that will change the theme for Visual Studio Code. And as a trolley sort of thing, I used to change it to something that wasn't a dark theme, because apparently he's very into dark themes. And it seems like everybody's getting into dark themes now. Like all the apps are coming out with dark themes. So being a contrarian like I am, I actually kind of like the PowerShell ISE theme in Visual Studio Code. So I'm actually using it on a day-to-day basis, even though I sometimes try to troll Mike Jolly by setting his Visual Studio Code to this bright, non-dark theme. Anyway, I really dig this theme. It's really clean and looks really nice. So let's take a look at what's inside the repository for Bivrost. Obviously, we have the README that I just showed you guys, and we kind of rolled through it. I talked about how we're deploying to Zeit, and the way I'm doing that, like literally all you have to do is drop this now.json file in your repository if you have the Zeit GitHub app installed, and it will pick up information from it and do automatic deploys for anything that gets committed into master, but then also any pull requests that get created for you. You can have it spin up an instance of the application for you, which is really cool. And the only thing you need to do that is create this now.json file in your repository. So that's pretty cool. I also have a license file for licensing. I always use MIT license for my open source projects. It's just use it. It's free. I don't care. You can claim it as your own. MIT license. Here's my Docker file. The Docker file is fairly simple. It uses the .NET 2.2 Alpine image to build the .NET portions of it, which I'll show you in a minute. Then it uses NPM and Node to build the front end, and then sets up the image itself, executing the server DLL, which is pretty nice, pretty straightforward and clean. Not hard to understand that. I do have a workspace defined. My intention with the workspace is that I can add settings in here, including like recommended extensions. So that's why I have a workspace. Is eventually the extensions that I use to develop Bivrost. Anybody that pulls down the source, I want them to be able to use those same extensions. So I don't have to have a big list of extensions and keep it maintained, that sort of thing. Let's see. You guys know what an editor config and Docker ignore is. I don't need to explain those. I do have a docs directory, and the docs directory is intended to maintain my notes for things that I'm working on. Each feature within the application should have a doc explaining that feature and how it works. Obviously, I'm not all caught up on that right now. I also have some mock-ups or a place to put mock-ups when I create them. and then a document for the chatbot once I get that finished. So this is kind of my standard structure for setting up a project. One thing that I'm kind of heavily invested in is I do like to always have scripts for common things that I do. Mike Jolly and his cohort of developers like to use PowerShell profiles and add commands to like a PowerShell profile. I typically have a scripts directory in all my projects that are the common things that I have to do over and over and over and over again. Right? So creating an image, there's the command to do that. I don't have to go look it up repeatedly when I forget it. How to start locally, how to start the image itself. To initialize, you just like pull down the repository, CD into the repository and run this local init. It will get all of your dependencies and stuff set up for you appropriately. So I usually stuff all these things into a scripts directory like that. And then I have my source code, and my source code is broken up into two things. I have a client and I have a server. And this is really intended to be a front-end application and a back-end application. So I have a single-page application built in Vue.js and a back-end application that serves up any of my API that I need to serve up, written in ASP.NET Core. So let's take a look at that back-end and look at some of the interesting things about that back-end. We'll start off in the CS project itself and look at some of the dependencies that I'm using. First off, I wanted to use a good logging library that allows me to do structured logging. So I've set up Serilog, which allows me to do structured logging, which I really, really like. I'm still using TwitchLib, which I think everybody else in the .NET space is using. I'm giving some serious thought to abandoning it, though. I don't like the interface. It's a little busy, and there's like 2 tiers to it that have weird separation. I'm considering just hand writing the functionality that I need, but for now, TwitchLib gets me started and going fairly well. So I do like that. We also are using SignalR to pump out WebSocket data out to the front end. And I'm using a library by Jimmy Bogart called Mediator, which I'm a big fan of, Mediator is a mediation framework, which I'll show you some examples of what that means, that allows you to nicely decouple your front end from actual execution of commands and that sort of thing. The thing that I enjoy it for is I can kind of structure my applications in this kind of command query separated way, and Mediator allows me to do that. So that's kind of the things that I'm using in the back end. Let's look at how the application structured itself, starting with, we should start with Program CS because that's where logging is set up. Can you guys see this okay? Is that too small? Let me bump it up. I'm looking at my video, my outgoing video, and it does look kind of tiny. So how's that look? Does that look better? All right, cool. So in my static void main, I'm setting up my logger to write to the console. Basically, that's all I'm doing with that. But this is basically replacing the standard .NET logger with Serilog for me. So that's kind of nice. You guys can take a look at how that's wired up. And then if we go into my startup CS, you can see some of the things that I'm using to build this application. I'm using memory cache, which gives me a caching layer based on the memory of the web server itself. And it's a nice kind of entry point into using a caching layer in that you can use it fairly cheaply without having to stand something like Redis or any other caching technology up. And it just uses the web server's RAM itself. And it responds well to memory pressure. So as you add things to the cache and memory begins to become scarce, old things that aren't being used drop out. So it's just a really nice entry point to caching. And right now, the only cache that I'm using is caching user information. So I don't know if you watched on some other streams, people who are interacting with the Twitch API, when you get an incoming message, you don't necessarily get all the information about the users you might want, like their profile image and their display name, that sort of thing. So my user cache, what it allows me to do is it allows me to fetch those from the Twitch API, store them in memory while I need them, and not keep hitting the API for every interaction that flows through my system, right? Configure some logging providers. That's where I add Serilog in there. I have a Twitch client. I also have a Twitch bot. I'm adding Mediator in there. And it's going through and scanning the assembly, looking for handlers. We'll talk about that in a bit. I'm also using MVC, just a straight MVC implementation. I add SignalR in. Let's see. And then I'm also using the JavaScript services that have been around for a while, but you don't see people talking about it very often. But I use it so that I don't have to have two processes running on my machine locally. I can fire up the application here in Visual Studio Code, and ASP.NET Core will actually host my Vue application for me. I don't have to have some other thing hosting it for me. So I add a SPA static files. I pass that in via configuration because that directory can move around based on whether you're in the Docker container or just running locally. So that does come out of configuration. And then let's see, in my configure step where I'm actually setting up my middleware pipeline, I wire up SignalR to hang off of Client Hub. I map basically the default routes for MVC. But if I'm running development, running locally, I wire up the Webpack Dev middleware, which basically allows me to run Vue, edit the Vue pages, and it'll automatically have hot module reloading when I run in debug mode, which is pretty cool. I really like that a lot. I fiddled with this forever. So getting it to work was kind of a pain, but now that I have it working, it works pretty well. The thing that caught me was if you just use the Webpack Dev middleware, deep linking with SPA applications didn't work. So all it would serve up the SPA on was on your root path. I had to figure out how to get that to work so that I could have routes that are like, chat overlay or overlay/chat. And it would be the SPA application, not trying to find a route in the MVC app. So maybe in a future video, we'll go over the complexities of that and how I solved it. And then I have some configuration for when it's production, basically. So that's my startup. So let's take a look at the Twitch bot and how that's wired up. If you come in here, this is actually my bot code. And if we open startup, you can see that my bot, where is he? Is added to the services collection here, but I'm using an override to be able to do that. And if you take a look, what I'm doing is I'm setting my bot up as, where's he at? Add Twitch bot as a hosted service. So when I start the application, the bot starts automatically when the application starts. And it is fairly straightforward. I basically run this start async task or method, and it wires up a bunch of events that I can respond to, and it logs out some information, and then it starts my client, right? I don't have a lot of these implemented yet. They're just kind of placeholders. The interesting one to look at is on message received. So let's see. Here's on message received. And you see I get a message from the Twitch lib, and I log that out using Serilog. And then I just use Mediator to publish a receive chat message notification, right? And I pass the chat message along with it. Now, what Mediator does is it looks for any handler that I have registered that accepts that type of message and executes that bit of code. So if I go up here into handlers and I look at the chat reflection handler, you see that it handles, if I come up to the top, it's a notification handler of type receive chat message notification, right? And in the handle method, I can go in and I can implement my logic for when that message is received. And what this particular handle does is it gets a user from our cache, and then it constructs a anonymous object that contains a bunch of information about the user, as well as the message that was sent, and it sends it out over SignalR. That's what this hub context is. So I'm basically sending a socket IO message out to my front end of the client. And the interesting thing about that is I can have as many of these handlers as I want. So right now, this is my chat reflection handler, which I'm not showing you chat right now, but I should be. I'll fire that up in a minute. And that's what shows you the nice little bubbles coming up on this on the feed of what people are saying in chat. But I could also have another notification handler of this particular message type that does some other bit of functionality. So say I wanted to have all of the emotes that you guys put in dance around on the screen. Well, I could create a handler that pushes that message out that has just the emotes that were sent via chat. And I can have something in my UI subscribing to those messages and displaying the emotes in a certain way. That's probably the next thing I'm going to implement on that, right? But that's not the only thing that it can do. Because it's a bot, I can also do our typical commands. So someone was using the shoutout command earlier, and that's actually implemented here in Bivrost as just a shoutout handler. And it looks for any messages that starts with bang SO. And if it does, it's going to log a bit of information and send a message out to the chat channel about that person's stream, right? And if that person's not found, we can't find that person, or the message is messed up some way, it's going to send a whisper to that person saying, hey, I'm sorry, I couldn't do that for you. So that's kind of the structure of the backend application itself. Let's take a look at the client application. So if I come into the client directory, it is your typical Vue.js application. Let's look at our dependencies and see what we're going to be using there. The big dependencies that I'm using so far are, of course, Vue. I am using Vue Router. I'm also using Vuex. I don't know if that's pronounced Vuex or Vuex. I think I've heard it pronounced one way, but not the other. This is my state management library, basically. And you can see how that's being used. I've been playing around with Animate CSS and Bootstrap for UI. And there's a handy NPM package called Bootstrap Vue that gives you Vue components for all of the Bootstrap UX elements. And then a ASP.NET SignalR to pull that information in. And if you're not familiar with Vue starts out in your entry point, basically, just like with the .NET application. You have a static void main. Your static void main for Vue is usually main.js, and that's where you kind of wire up your various Vue objects and kind of your initial setup of your application. So you can see I pull in a whole bunch of libraries. I add some components globally. And then I instantiate my Vue object, passing in my router and my store. And you can see once the app is created, I start listening on my socket, basically. All right. That's pretty cool. So let's take a look at what Bivrost actually looks like. And if you pull source and you have your secrets set up correctly, all you have to do in Visual Studio Code is just hit debug, and it should start up for you and open up in a browser. Did not mean to do that. There we go. So we can see in chat already that Bivrost has joined. I'm using my own login information because I don't want to have a separate bot account. I'd rather just have things coming from me. So mine's a little different setup than most people do with their bots, but I kind of like it set up this way. And if we go into a browser and actually open that up, this is what Bivrost looks like. Right now, there's not a whole lot to it, other than there's a drop down for overlays for chat. And if I come over here into chat and actually say something, we should get a nice little message that pops up, and you can see it. Well, you can't see it over here in the overlay yet. Let me make sure that it's running. Bivrost chat. Let's open that up. How do you refresh? Refresh. Okay. You're supposed to refresh to where I can actually see something. Let's try that again. Bloop. There's that. But why did it kill my camera? Go back to camera. I'm there. Go back to screen. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So if you notice, what? Why is it showing me instead of Mike Jolly? Looks like I found my first bug. Yeah. So anyway, this is pretty nice. Basically, here's how the flow goes, how we're actually getting those messages all the way through, right? So if we come back, not script source, we go to server and look in the bot. We have this on message received. So I've connected to chat. And when a chat message comes through, I log an event out. And then I publish the receive chat message notification, right? Mediator looks at its configured handlers and says, okay, well, the chat reflection handler is the only thing that handles this particular type of message. So execute its handle method right here. The very first thing that I do in there is I check the notification to make sure it doesn't start with a bang. If it does start with a bang, I just want to skip it because that's someone doing like a shout out command or something like that, right? The very next thing I do, and it looks like this is broken, is I get the users from our user cache based on the user ID. And then I send a message out via SignalR to all listening clients that I received a chat message, right? So then the message goes out over WebSockets to my front-end client. And the front-end client is listening. Let's take a look. If we go to main.js, you can see I started the socket here, listening when the app starts. But deep down inside my store, let's see, where did I put it? Inside my chat module. Where is it? Actually, I think I have that somewhere else. Maybe in router? Well, it's been a while since I've set this up, obviously, because I don't remember where I do my subscription. So is it on pages, chat overlay page? Map state, nope, that's not it. It's not my bot. Stop putting me in the server. Oh, it's in the app. There it is. Okay. So the highest level component myself is where I subscribe to my messages coming over SignalR. And I do that by having this sockets object. And for each of the methods defined in my SignalR interface, I have a corresponding message right here. So I have a receive chat message. I get that message and I use Vuex to dispatch a new chat add message message, right? So now if we go over into the store, we can see I have a chat store that's specific for that. Actions, that's the word I was looking for. A chat action. And you can say when that is called, I get a commit, and I can call the, what is it called? The mutation called add message. That add message pulls out my state and adds the new message into state itself. And when that happens, my view, my chat overlay page view, reads those and just pops it back out to the UI, right? So it's really, really nice. Did you guys actually get something naughty to show up? You shouldn't be able to, because I'm not as freely open as Mr. Jolly is. So I can show you how that stuff is structured as well. So I have some components. I have a chat list view, a chat message. So the chat list view is just the list of chats that are coming in and displaying them. I have a chat message that's coming out. And then the display text that's actually displayed in the UI itself has its own component that strips out some of the stuff you guys are trying to do, but it does properly process emojis, which is pretty nice. Now, I'm curious, why am I not getting your guys' profile information? You're all showing up as me. That's really bizarre. So why don't we try debugging that as our last step for the day? I didn't want to go too in-depth on Bivrost this time. I just wanted to introduce it to you and show you kind of like, this is what my application structure is kind of like. Here are the features that I'm implementing. And the next time you see Bivrost on stream, what I'll be doing is I'll be actually implementing some feature. And we'll get deeper into how it works at that point. But this is the first time I've actually used Bivrost where I actually have people in channel with me, and I haven't seen that bug before. So let's see if we can try to figure out what it is. I'm going to go into my bot and look at my publish. Well, actually, I should go into the handler. I should be able to see everything I need to in there. So I'm going to throw a breakpoint in here on my user cache. And let's have one of you guys say something, someone other than me, to where I can see if I can tell what's causing the bug. Oh my God, say something. All right, so that's the user ID. Let's step in and see how the user cache works itself. So I'm going to step into fetching that user from the user cache. Let's see, we're going to get or create a user async using that user ID. Step over that. I'm going to throw a breakpoint right there. You're not going to show it to me? Here we go. Okay, so this is the user I got out of that. And it is returning me for some reason. So the user I'm getting out of the cache. Now, is that I'm not hitting the endpoint? No, because this should be coming out of cache. But my ID is obviously different from the one that I requested. So if you look at my ID, it's 109 ends in 417. And the ID I passed in is very different than that. So I'm not sure. My cache implementation must be really messed up, is what I'm trying to say. So I'm going to go ahead and let that one on through. And am I hitting the breakpoint again? Good, because someone else said something. So go into that. Well, the user ID I have is 279. We're going to step into the get or create async. And I'm never hitting this. Oh, I see what it is. Do you guys see what it is yet? So I'm using string interpolation right here, but the way I'm using it is wrong, right? So I'm caching every user, as user dash curly bracket user ID curly bracket. Right? So I'm only ever inserting one key. The key isn't changing. And when I was debugging just myself being in there, it was always the right user. So I'm going to go ahead and kill Bivrost real quick. And I believe the syntax... Yes, exactly, Mike Jolly. That's my theory. What is the syntax for string interpolation in .NET? Do I have to put a dollar in front of it? I don't think I do. Well, here, let's give that a try. Mr. Jolly says that's correct, so I'm going to try that. All right. Oh, dollar at the beginning of the string instead of the at, you mean? Gotcha. That's it. See, that's what happens when you're a polyglot programmer. You forget all these like minute details. Pop that back open. Let's fire it. Fire it up. Let's nuke all these breakpoints because we probably don't need them anymore. I'm going to leave the one in user cache so we can see that it's actually working. So I don't need that window popping up. Looks like someone said something. Who is that? All right. So we did get a cache miss. Is it popping up into chat as different people? Let's take a look. Yes, it is. I have the people showing up appropriately now. Woo woo. And I should... And you see how repeated people are not going out to the API, right? So if Mike Jolly were to say something right now, we wouldn't hit the breakpoint because his user profile is being stored in cache, in memory right now. But if one of the people who haven't said anything recently, like maybe V and K, if V and K were to say something, we would hit this breakpoint because we have to go out and get the profile information from the API. So it's a nice little circuit breaker pattern I have implemented here. And the use of cache is nice because as memory pressure forces things out of cache, I free up that memory and I can always fetch them back again, which is really nice. I like the way that works. Instead of trying to batch them up. That's another thing that an implementation detail that maybe I want to implement in a future stream is I am subscribing to these. Where's it at? Let's go back to my bot. I am subscribing to people joining, right? So when that user joins, there's no reason that I can't prime the cache for myself already. Right? So that's something I may implement in a future stream is priming the cache to where I don't have to get them as chat messages roll through. I also want to have a handler for handling statistics. So like maybe who was the biggest chatter during a stream, who was with me for the entire stream that way. And yes, this does look like Mr. Jolly's pop-ups because I started out trying to use his IO bot, was frustrated with trying to get it run locally. But I really like the way it looks. So I stole his look and feel, adding my own little color scheme and that sort of thing. So far my overlay is based on what Michael Jolly does. Anyway, so hopefully you guys dig that. I think that's all I'm going to do for the day. If you guys don't have any questions about any of this, we can pop back over here to the camera and just talk to each other face to face, do that C# Fritz thing where I look really intensely at the camera. But okay, well, whatevs. It's all good. Looks like a lot of you guys hung out with me, stayed for a while. I really, really appreciate that. And because I talked about the stream team earlier, what I'd like to do is I'd like to take a look and see who is out there streaming and maybe do a raid. and introduce you to one of our cohorts here. And it looks like Clancy's streaming, and he's only got 3 people watched him. I haven't watched Clancy's stream yet. So why don't we raid Clancy? And I would appreciate it if you guys came with me over into the raid, and we can stick around, check out his raid for a bit, but then drop off. But at least stick with me to get over there, to give him a little thrill of having a bunch of people show up, say hi, be nice, that sort of thing. So let's go ahead and do that raid real quick. Go to Clancy. That is an unexpected name. All right, so here we go. Thanks, everybody.